Welcome to another episode of With Enough Prep Time. Today I'm going to be talking about one of my favourite DC characters, Martian Manhunter, who I believe, unfortunately, he's always taken a kind of back role. He's primarily known as a founding member of the Justice League, but has had very little success in terms of comic books of his own. I think one of the reasons for this is the close proximity. His powers, not his character, but his powers have to Superman. So what I'm going to be talking about, just in order, is one, why I think this character is fantastic, and a little bit about the history of the character. Two, I want to talk about why I think he would fit perfectly into the DC cinematic universe, and how perhaps just to give some, just to test out the concept, DC should perhaps do a Martian Manhunter Earth 1 comic, because I think it could really work. And then three, I'm going to talk about how I would approach either a kind of modern retelling of the Martian Manhunter, where I have to say I wouldn't say I'm a comic purist, but I believe that if something is essential to a character, then in comic books they should not change that thing that is central to them. But I do believe in modernizing a particular a particular mythos of superheroes. So let me give you a couple of examples of what I'm talking about. So, for instance, the Incredible Hulk, who was one of my favorite characters, when he first appeared, was the result of a nuclear bomb goes off, and Dr. Banner gets caught in the center of it, absorbs somehow the power of the nuclear bomb, and then turns into the Incredible Hulk. At first it was he turned into the Incredible Hulk after night, but then it was decided that it's actually triggered, and which is the much better and more famous story, that it's actually triggered when he's under stress or becomes angered. Now, they obviously changed that particular story for the films, and I believe even some comic incarnations have changed that. Why? Because it doesn't really make sense. I mean, you get hit by a bomb, a nuclear bomb, you don't turn into a superhero. So they have changed that origin. But what I would say is, if that fundamentally changed the character of the Incredible Hulk, I would be totally against it. If it doesn't stay true to the core character and the core mythos, I would be against it. But in fact, it doesn't matter. That particular issue of how he gets those powers doesn't really matter to the core of the character. So I didn't mind the change. Now, let me talk about changes that I do mind. For instance, in the latest Man of Steel film, the change that I personally would mind if they continue on with this is the lack of kryptonite. Now, I understand in a realistic world, kryptonite shouldn't be something that's readily available on Earth, so it makes sense that they've left that out of the first film. But I think the idea of kryptonite being the Achilles heel of Superman is so core and central to the character. That core vulnerability is really, I think, essential, and without it, I think there's something lacking and there's something missing in the story. I also think the fact that Lois Lane has figured out Clark Kent's identity again is something that you know, for me it changes the mythology and it changes the character to an extent that eventually, if you keep making these changes, you're not going to end up with the same character. A similar thing is with the latest Wonder Woman arc that is being written by I can't even remember his name, but where Zeus is now Wonder Woman's paternal father. I just think it's an awful, ridiculous change to a story that was perfectly fine as it was. But back to Martian Manhunter, which is what we're talking about here. So the relevance of me saying and introducing all this is, I want to talk about how I would, perhaps approach the Martian Manhunter's origin story. And there are going to be a few changes. And I'd like to know from people what they think, if they think those changes essentially change the character. But I really don't think they do. So that's what I'm going to be talking about effectively in a row. So it's going to be perhaps a two-part video where, as I said, I talk about history of the character and why I like him, why I think he'll fit perfectly into a DC cinematic universe and perhaps an Earth 1 universe, and then I'm going to be talking a little bit about my story that I started writing about the Martian Manhunter. And actually you'll see in this article that I've given some key scenes of the film itself, so that you can have a little read of some key scenes with a little explanation of what's going on in them. Okay, so there we go. That's going to be my first introduction, and we'll go from there. Thank you.